So let us first discuss the basics of statistics. So why do we need statistics first thing? Or what is statistics? So you can see this definition. It is the science that deals with collection of data. So firstly, you have to collect the data. Then whatever data you have collected, then you will organize that data. You will make the classifications of data. And then whatever classification you have made, then you will present the data in a presentable form. Then you can perform the analysis on that data, and then you have certain results which you can interpret. Okay, the trend of certain thing is going like this, and so on. So this is what we will do. So if, the example for data is, for example, the number of farmers which are working in a block, or the rainfall which has happened over a period of time, or it is the area that you have to study of some field, or for which the crop has been sought, right? So this is the basic. What are the uses of statistics? Statistics has various uses. For example, it could be used in various states, industries, business, research workers, banking, insurance companies, and obviously for agriculture also. So that is why we are using or studying this particular subject. What are the limitations that are involved with studying this statistics? It could only be applied to certain things. For example, where there is a variability in the experimental material. The experimental material is keep on changing. In that case, we say we cannot apply this statistics. And if we only aggregate statistics, it only deals with groups or aggregates, not with the individual objects. So that means the data is not exact every time, and it the results could also be misused. For example, whatever results you are getting, they may mislead you to and would result in incorrect information. So how can you collect data? Firstly, data is of two types. One is primary data and second is secondary data. So primary data means you are collecting it from the primary source, and what is secondary data? It means you are collecting it from the secondary source. So how can you do that? Methods to collect primary data involve, you could directly take the interview of person from whom you wanted the data, or you could conduct the indirect interviews. That means you can ask the third person or the next person for you to, okay, you go there and you collect the data from him, you ask this questions from him or her. So that is how you have collected the data. Or you ask some other people ki, okay, what is this thing, what is this person eating for lunch? So that is also one kind of data. You could create a questionnaire, question bank, and you can send it to various peoples so that they can directly answer it. So these are the kind of primary data that you have obtained. So you could read all these things, when to do what kind of things to collect what kind of data. So in detail you could read all these points. So next, let me talk about secondary data. Secondary data is that performing experiments or I'm sorry, performing experiments and collecting primary data is most of the time costly, because it takes much time and more of resources are required in having that information. So what we do, we go for secondary data sometimes. Secondary data is whenever you go to some company and they say, okay, give me some data, then that would come under the category of secondary data. So from where can you get the published data? Some is the published data. For example, we have this research data that is available on internet. So from there also you can have some data in the form of research papers and various reports by the government committees has been commissioned for this data. From there you could have data, right? And moreover, you could also get secondary data through unpublished sources of data. For example, you could go to some authority in some village or in some urban city for regarding what is the area under certain crop, or what is the crop production happening at in that area. So you could collect the data through them. Secondary data, it should have the following characteristics. They should be reliable, adequate, suitable, accurate, complete, and consistent. So next is the variables, or the variability is the common characters in biological sciences, a quantitative or qualitative characteristic that varies from observation to observation in the same group is called variable. Then we have also discussed about the quantitative data and the qualitative data. Qualitative data is which you cannot measure in terms of number, and that represents the quality. So for example, you wanted to study what is the intelligence or IQ of certain purpose, so you cannot measure that thing in numbers. So that is the qualitative data. And quantitative data is the thing that you can measure. For example, you can measure the height of plants, what is the weight of seeds involved. It also has certain measurements, right? Height would be measured in centimeter, meter, or whatever units of length you would like. Weight would be measured in kilograms, etc. So this is the kind of data that we have studied already, right? So data could also be defined on this category: geography, that means on the basis of location, that the according to the region. For a particular region we have particular data. Then according to chronology, that means according to based on history, that we are starting from in the year 1990 to 91, what is the tons of yield that is produced for the certain amount of food grain. Or we have qualitative data. Qualitative data means we are saying, okay, the types of farmers, they are marginal, medium, or large. So this is qualitative. That means we are not quantifying it in the form of numbers, right? Quantitative classification of data involves, okay, we are saying the number of farmers who have a land holding in hectares of less than 1, that are 442 in number, and between 1 to 2, that is 908. So this is the quantitative data. That means we are defining the class intervals for that. So this you should note, what is the difference between primary data and secondary data. So in primary data, the original data is original. Why? Because you yourself are is going to that particular person, and you yourself are collecting that data. So it is an original data. It should not be false data. Why? Because you are authenticating it, you are verifying it. Then secondary data, that is not original, because you are asking someone else ki, okay, go to that person and you collect that particular amount of data from them. Or you are depending upon certain agencies on which from which you are collecting this secondary data. So this is not so original. This is original. Primary data is original. Then we will check the suitability of this data. If the data are collected accurately and systematically, then the suitability of this data would be very positive. But here you might go for certain inquiry. Okay, you are asking your friend that I have sent this person to collect this amount of data from this person, so would he bring me the correct data or not? So you are checking for the suitability of data to you, whether the data collected by that particular person would be suitable for your use or not. Then the time and labor that is involved in this primary data is huge, because lot of resources would be involved. You will spend money to get that data, you will spend your time, you will go yourself and then inquire about the data, and obviously because you are involved, so manpower would be more for this kind of data. These kind of secondary data, on the other hand, they are less costly, so they could be very easily attained, right? For primary data, there should not be any kind of precaution required because you are the one that is collecting that amount of data, whereas in secondary data you should take care and should have great care and caution about the data because that is not so reliable. So I hope you understood this primary data, the concept of primary and secondary data, what are the limitations and uses according to various different needs. So let us now move on to the next component.